So the TVM solver that is under apps on your TI-83 calculator, it's apps finance TVM solver, has TVM standing in the name. I've already said it once before I started the video. Do you know what the T and the V and the M stand for? I'm going to pause this. I want you to talk to the kid next to you and try to figure out at least what some of those words mean. TVM. All right, it stands for time, value, money. Now, let me explain why time, value, money exists. If I made a deal with you and said, hey, can I borrow your car? I'll give you $100. You let me borrow your car for a day. And that's actually kind of reasonable. That's what it costs to rent a car. So you say, sure, that's a deal. So I borrow your car for the day. And at the end of the day, you're like, okay, so where's the $100? And I say, I'll give it to you in a month. Wouldn't you feel kind of like ripped off a little bit? Yeah. Because there's a time value to the money. Like you expected to get the money right away, and that's worth $100. Let me ask you this. If you get the money a month later, wouldn't you expect to get a little bit more than $100?
Interest.
Yeah, because of interest. They would owe you more than 100. If they're going to give it to you in a month, you might say, fine, but I want 110. Okay, because that's more fair because they have your money. There's a time value to money. All right? Okay, so TVM, time value of money.
Oh, yeah.
So now here's a scenario that you should be able to type into this calculator. You should have learned it the other day. I get it. It was a video. It was me, but it was still a video, so maybe you didn't catch it. The first thing is N, and that's number of payments. All right, so how many payments am I going to make? Well, I want this to be a very simple loan that you can relate to. You borrow $1,000 from your friend. Have I told you how many months it's going to be yet? No. But you could put that 1,000 somewhere. Now, if you're like, I don't know what to put in the other ones, you can always put zeros to hold the place until you get there. And I can tell you that you'd have a zero in all those spots. And I can tell you at the end, you're going to want to use 12 and 12 pretty much every time. Because we're going to use monthly payments pretty much every time. Is it every time? No, but pretty much every time. All right. When would we ever not use a 12? If where frequency is sometimes 4. There's a name for it. If I use 4, that's called, starts with a Q, quarterly. Very good. Okay. So now, in my scenario, that 1,000 should have gone on the PV. That could be interpreted as present value. Now, that 1,000, I said you were borrowing 1,000, and I get some people are going to be like, is it negative 1,000 or not? So let's talk about when would we ever use a negative number in here? Do you guys know what a checking account is? It's like your little pile of money at the bank, okay? And even if you don't ever write a check, they still call it a checking account. All right, so you've got this checking account, and that means you can send money out of it or you can put money into it. It's only two different ways you can go. Now, I want you to talk to the kid next to you. Which of those two do you think is negative?
Oh, did he say it was a loan?
Not the loan. I'm talking about which one of these is negative. Putting money in or taking money out? Taking money out is negative. All right. But if you have a loan of 1,000, didn't you just put that into your checking account? You got it from your friend. Didn't it just go into your checking account? So it's positive because it went into your checking account. But you now owe them money, yeah, but it's not negative in your checking account. It's a positive 1,000. It's in your checking account. All right. Now the payment you make, that'll be negative because it's coming out of your checking account. All right. We're going to make payments of negative $10. All right. Next. What do you want the future value of this to be? Talk to the kid next to you. What do you want the future value of this loan to be? 0 is correct. Because don't you want the loan to be $0? You paid it all off, right? So it's 0. And then interest. Do people actually charge interest? Absolutely. That's just how the world works. Nobody gives you money for free unless it's like we're trying to really incentivize you to get this car. So we'll give you a 0% interest loan. That is a very, a rare thing and worth a lot. So we're going to say it's a normal interest rate. Let's say it's 7%. Just put a 7 there. So you borrowed $1,000 from a friend. You're making payments of $10. How often? How often are you making the payments? Monthly. Okay. Now, what don't we know?
Number of payments.
The number of payments. I can't tell. Can you tell? So this calculates it for you. So you go up here, you put the cursor, it's called, right there, the little black box, put it there, and then do alpha solve, and it'll tell you how many payments you're going to have to make. What did you get for that?
150.5.
150 point what?
5.
Now, do you agree that that's kind of a weird number of payments? Are you going to really make 150.52 payments? You can't really make 0.52 of a payment. So that got a little weird. And so we have to, this tool is not the best tool for that problem. But I was showing you how you'd put it in, but now it's kind of weird because it got a weird number of payments on the end. Now, couldn't we change it and say, I want it to be 150 payments? We could do that. And then we could force the payment to be weird. Do you get what I mean by that? All right, so everybody please change this number to 150 exactly. And then alpha solve on your payments, and they won't be 10 anymore. If we make it 150 payments, Andrew, what'd you get for your payment now?
10.02.
10.02. Do you get, by just paying $10.02, you'll hit 150 exactly on the nose. All right. Now, there's another tool that could do this job, and that is, remember the old y equals screen with the sequences? In sequence mode, would you please go to the y equals screen, and the first thing it'll say is n min. All right. To be able to put this in your calculator, I want you now on a blank notability doc, and I want you to write out what is the equation for this thing with u0 equals, you know, these kind of equations. You had to write them on your last test. You can't forget them. Math is not like that. Whatever we taught you first chapter, in this case it was sequences and recursion, it comes back for the next test. So we got to know how to write those. un equals un minus 1. Can you write out the equation for this right here? I'm going to pause while you get that entered. Okay. You should have said U0 was 1,000 because that was what we started with, which was a loan of 1,000. Notice it's not negative. Next, un minus 1, and then, hear me, for this next test, always 1 plus. Why is it always plus? Because it's interest. And there's no such thing as negative interest. Interest it always makes the number go up. Okay? So we're doing interest of, what did I say again? 7%. 0.07. And I'm going to blow this up down here. 1 plus 0.07 divided by 12. Did you remember the divided by 12? And then the payments, I think we figured out the payments were negative 10.02. All right. Now I told you, there's the right tool for the job. If we now put this into the sequence screen on the y equals on the calculator, it'll start with n min is 0. Remember what that is. That's this little subscript number down here. N min 0. Then it says un, and you have to tell it u, which is right above the 7 key. It's a lowercase u, n minus 1. And then, what I just said, 1 plus 0.07 divided by 12. And then the payment of negative, but wait, we're not going to do 10.02. We're going to make bigger payments. We're going to make $12 payments per month. Now, the thing that this is good at is telling us exactly how much you paid. If you make $12 payments, you'll be able to figure out how much did you pay. You didn't pay $1,000. By the time you're done, you're going to pay way more than $1,000 because of interest. All right. So now, if I was writing one of these on the test, n is greater than or equal to what? 1. That's called the domain. Now, you don't have to have that in a calculator, but I want to remind you, domains are a thing. That's going to be worth a point on your, or at least some percentage, on your project that you do. Because your next test is a project. Your project is going to be, let's talk about this. Let's say that this was your project. You borrowed $1,000 and you'd be asked to figure out how much total did you actually pay when you got that $1,000 all paid back. You're going to have to tell me what you bought. Typical kid does a car because you're going to do a project where you say, I want to be a nurse, and you look up how much nurses make, and I want to make payments on this Saab convertible. You found it online, you see how much it costs, you figure out how much the payments are going to be, and then we figure out, can you actually afford that car on your salary? So the biggest mistake you could make is dreaming too big on your car, because if the car's too expensive, you have to do that whole part of the project over again, which kind of sucks. So pick a reasonable car, or make sure that you make lots of money in the job that you pick. Okay, because if you have a small income and you want a really expensive car, it doesn't work, and it doesn't work in the real world either. They won't let you borrow the money. They'll say, sorry, nurse, you can't afford to pay back this Lamborghini, so we're not giving you the loan. All right. So what I want you to go home tonight and figure out is, what job do you want to research? And then actually research and find out how much they make. Then, what car do you want to buy? And just try to keep it reasonable so that it isn't too expensive for your job. Because if it's too expensive for the job, you got to do it over again. And take a screenshot of the car that you found. Maybe you go to cars.com or whatever, and you find this car, and you're like, ooh, that'd be pretty sweet. I'll take that car, and it's not that expensive, so I think I can afford it. And you come with that tomorrow. And then you'll be ready to jump into the project. Okay, so back to this. You've now entered on the y equals screen. The last thing you got to tell it is UN min. If you have the fancy pants calculators, it already knows the n min is 0, so it puts U0 there. But if you don't, it's okay. You'll know it's 0 because that's up there. So what is U sub 0? We haven't told it yet that we borrowed 1,000. That goes on the third line. All right. Now, here's the question. Can you find the place in the table where this got paid off? Like, is it U sub 83? Or was it U sub 84? There was some moment on the table where there was a small amount that left to pay off, and then all of a sudden, the next number is negative. And I want to talk that through. So please look on the table. It's not month 83 and 84. I don't know what month it is. Did you figure it out, Andrew? What months are they? 150 and 151?
115.
Oh, 115?
114,
Oh, 114 and 115. Everybody find that spot on your table. You better know how to do table settings. Because if your table settings are off, it'll start spinning, and then you got to turn your calculator off to get that to stop. So go to the spot 114 and 115, and apparently, if Andrew's right, which he usually is, that's where there's a small amount left on the loan, and then that's a negative number, and then you're going to talk over what the heck does that negative number mean? That negative number, what does it mean? Talk to the kid next to you. Remember, this is a loan. Berg, did you get the same 114, 114? Or 114, 115? What were the numbers at 114? What was it?
It was 5.51, and then 115 was negative 6.46.
All right. Let's make sure you understand what these two mean. At 114 payments, it was close to paid off. So how many payments did you actually have to make? 115. 115 payments. Of how much? How much were the payments? Got it up here. It's in the formula. 12. Take a moment, multiply that out. That's an important number. Use a calculator. You got one. Just hit second quit. First, when you compare the same exact y equals 3. Trust me. Talk to him first. And if those numbers are identical, then you get the identical answers. So, this 1380, that's how much you paid, but that's not the final answer. Andrew, do you know what you're supposed to do to get the final answer? Subtract the 6.46. Because why? Because that's money they owe you back. You paid them too much. Now they got to refund you that money. So your total paid should be the 1380 minus the 6.46. Let me see what that comes to. What is 1380 minus 6.46? 1373.54. Can you guys verify that answer? Awesome. Now what is that? Is that the interest that you paid? No. And you might be like, but I thought I only borrowed $1,000. How come I ended up paying 1373? Because you paid interest. How much interest did you pay? $373.54. That's the hardest question. Let's make sure you really got that. Where to get the 115 times the 12? Take a second. Talk to the kid next to you. What was that? Why did I do 115 times 12?
Yeah.
So go to your tables now. Both of you go to the table. It's not just M minus 1, it's U. Okay. I thought the screens were the same. I knew they had to be different. Okay, so that was 115 payments of $12 gave you this. Why do you subtract the 646 at the end? Because they owe you money back. All right, now notice we don't use this very much. The TMV solver is cool, but it's mostly cool for finding a payment. Like how much would the payment be? All right, we're not going to go back there for a bit. We're going to stay on this kind. And now I want you to go to your calculator and change these numbers to be for a new story. Okay, you're going to borrow money to buy an awesome car. Now, thankfully, you're a doctor, and so you're making good money, and so you're like, I want to buy my dream car, and so you buy a Porsche, and the Porsche costs $98,000. You borrow all the money, $98,000. Now you know one of your numbers is different. Type it in, $98,000. Next question, we'll just keep it at 7% interest. That's fine. Now, you know that you could ask the bank for what's my payment. By the way, that would be the TMV solver. But we're not going to do that because you got lots of money. And so you're just going to make big payments and see how long it takes to pay it off. You're going to make $2,000 payments on your Porsche. $2,000 a month. That's honestly not that crazy. Like, people do that. Average car payment on a normal car, the average car that's on payments is about $750 a month. So for a Porsche, you're going to pay way more than $750 a month. So we're making $2,000 a month payments. So I just have to go minus $2,000. And then this was $98,000 car. The things that also surprise you when you buy a car that's kind of depressing is like, oh, plus tax, and then it's like, oh crap. On a car like that, it's like $7,000 of tax. Oh, plus you got to pay for the licensing fee to get your license plate. That's like another $800 in Minnesota. In some states, I looked it up. It's $47 in some states, and it's $800 here. So, anyway, okay. Would you please figure out not what your payments were? I know that. It's what are these two numbers? Is it U114 and U115? At some point, it paid off. Find those two numbers, and then figure out how much interest did you pay. First, you got to find the total to get the interest, but oftentimes kids have trouble finding it. I want to skip through that part. Anybody find it so you can just help us find what row it was, Johnson? Everybody checked 57. Anybody verify 57, 58? Awesome. That means after 57 payments, you were close, but after 58, you actually had it paid off. Tate, did you get that so far? What'd you get for U57? You still owed how much? Just read me the digits. U57 was? 1745 point what? 809. Thank you. And you got it? Negative what?
Negative
244. Any pennies? Look close. 006 would round to 01. Okay. Now, does that tell me the interest, either one of those two numbers? Nope. Those two numbers aren't the interest. For this next part, Andrew, how many payments did we make? 58. This number becomes important. Times, how much were the payments again? 2,000. And even that isn't the final answer. Tease, what do I have to do next? Yep. Subtract this, 244.01, and that will give me the grand total. It still isn't the interest, but we're really close. Pusselberg, what'd you get for the total, not the interest?
The total was 116,000.
Is it exact? That seems unlikely.
No, that's the 58 times 2,000.
Oh, I gotcha.
And then minus 2.
And then you subtract the 244, and then you got
115,755.99.
755.99. Whew. There's your grand total. And then the last thing is super easy. How much of that was the car, and how much of that was the interest? Well, the car was the 98,000. So if you take that minus the 98,000, you got your interest. What is 115,756 minus 98,000? 17756. 17,000 in interest. Do you get why the bank kind of wants you to borrow money from them? Because the bank made 17 grand. The person that sold the car to you, they made money too, but the bank made a lot of money also. All right. So, what's your job for tomorrow? Know how to use this kind of equation. Also know how to use this, the TVM solver. We need to do one more of those before we wrap. And then for the rest of the hour, what you're going to have is you have this partner next to you, and you can complete those 4 questions. It's just a 4-question Schoology quiz that's got a little parts. But we're going to do one more TMV solver, and then all you'll have to do at home, hopefully you'll finish the assignment in class, all you have to do at home is pick out a job that you want to research, and how much do they make, and then pick out a car you want to buy that will be reasonable for that job. All right, so here's my last TMV solver. They're good for finding payments. So we're gonna do one last college payment this time. It's a very realistic situation that you are gonna go off to college and probably have to borrow some money to go to college. If you don't, you should just realize how blessed you are, because it's expensive to go to college, and most people have to take loans. Okay, so let's say that you take a $50,000 loan to get a degree. All right, so go into the TMV solver right now and put the 50,000 in the right place. You're taking a $50,000 loan. I'm trying to use realistic numbers. This is exactly how much my son-in-law had to take to get his degree in engineering. So $50,000 loan, and interest on these is usually subsidized by the government, so it's a little bit cheaper. So we're going to say it's going to be 5.5% interest. My son-in-law decides, I really want to get this paid off over the course of 10 years. Of course, it's monthly payments, so those last two numbers are all both 12. I want to say that again. He wants to pay it off in 10 years. If you put the 10 in here, you'll be screwing it up. So don't just put in 10. So one more time. Interest rate, 5.5%. Number of payments, 10 years. So be careful. He was borrowing $50,000. $50,000. So my question is, how much were his payments? Take a second. See if you got the same answers kid next to you. If not, compare your numbers.
Are you putting like the
The 10 was kind of a trick. 10 years means really 120. Now, your calculator can do the multiply. If you put in 10 times 12, it'll figure it out, and it's 120. Interest rate, 5.5. Very common mistake to put 0.055. Nope, 5.5. PV, that's the present value, and that means presently what's happening. You're borrowing $50,000. I totally get that some people think it's negative. They're wrong, because the $50,000 comes into your account so that you can pay for college. It wasn't a negative. The payment is a negative, though. All right. Tate, what'd you get for this one? Payment of?
Negative 542.
That sounds right. Can you finish it with pennies?
0.63.
I couldn't hear it.
0.63.
Thank you. 546 to 263. That sounds about right to me. Raise your hand if you got the same thing. Awesome. All right. Now, I just want you to have perspective on that. You have to pay that 542.63 for 10 years. Kind of sucks. Okay, so when you have choices to go off to college and like pick a place to go, when they tell you how much it's going to cost, make sure you know how much of that is loans. And for every 50,000 of loans you have to take, you're talking $500 a month. And so, what if you're like, well, this other college is so nice, and sure, it's going to cost me $100,000 in loans. You realize then you're talking about $1,000 a month for 10 years. And if you have something like that, it might make it so you can't possibly buy a house. You just can't, because you owe so much on the loans that you can't get a house for like 10 years. And that means for 10 years, you just having to pay rent, maybe live in your parents' basement, you know. So anyway, bottom line, try not to take out too much in loans. You don't have to. You can go to a community college. There's nothing wrong with that. You can get your 2-year degree from a community college almost for free. Really, really cheap. And then there's community colleges that will coordinate with like the U of M so that your first 2 years are at the community college, the second 2 years are at the U of M. And then when you tell everybody later, where'd you go to college? What are you going to say? I graduated from the U of M. And the U of M, if you live at home, could be very much more reasonable than all this. You could come out of there with very little in loans. So if you decide to have a huge amount of loans, that's on you. You pick that. You don't have to have any loans if you don't want. All right. So I know a lot of people will have loans, and that's not a terrible thing, but it's a terrible thing if you end up getting way more in loans than you had to, and you end up hating it later because, oh my gosh, now I'm stuck for 10 years paying these huge payments. All right, so that was what I think is worth a moment of talking about your very important future coming up. Just a few years, you'll have to decide this. All right, so all said and done, do you now get how to use the TVM solver? Do you know it stands for time, value, money? Do you get that it's good for finding the payments? The other thing that we did is good for figuring out the total you paid. The y equals screen thing, the sequence mode, that's good for figuring out the total that you paid and how much interest you paid. And what are you going to research tonight? A job, how much you get paid on that job on average, and a car. Take a screenshot of the car so you can prove, yeah, I can get this car for this much. All right, now please work on that Schoology quiz. The very first answer, you'll be asking me, do I type it quarterly or do I type 4? You can put in either one. The loan is paid 4 times a year, and that is also known as quarterly. So you can either say quarterly or you can say 4. That's in the first question. It may not be the very, very first question. Near the beginning. All right, talk over those answers for the first one as your partner. If you guys can finish them up quick, you can walk out of here done with everything. All right. Please raise your hand if you're the kid who has not taken the test yet, because I just want to walk over to you and try to figure out when you're taking that.